right, looks like it is working. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed it's going to work tonight. Oh, it is down to 25 degrees outside already, so things are freezing as fast as we were trying to do chores and get finished up. It was a whole whopping 9 degrees this morning, so I think we finally hit 32 today. So a lot of stuff was frozen, including us as we were trying to get chores done. We had just a little bit of snow hanging out, so make some room. Kanan's gonna join us tonight. So how is everybody doing? I see Jacinda is on, and you'll have to bear with me as I learn how. Those of you who have seen that we're doing the channel supporter thing for memberships, it gives me little notifications on the screen. So we're learning how to do that. So it looks like we've got Cindy, and I'm going to butcher your last name, and I apologize.
Oh, I think it's Telesac.
Telesac?
Yeah.
Okay, it looks scarier than I thought it was going to be. So Robin, rain, sleet, slick roads. Yeah, we had to run to town today. Kanan's got a new laptop that came in. He's kind of sort of back to working part-time, like a month at a time. And
yeah, kind of like that.
So we had to run to town, and the roads were totally slick this morning. So generational homestead, excuse me. Hello, Colorado. What part of Colorado? Kanan's grew up in Colorado, actually. So pretty you might want to move over if we want to see more than just your ear. Ferdy Rayala, shout out here at the Philippines. We have gotten so many new subscribers and people hanging out with us from the Philippines. It's kind of crazy, but hello to the Philippines. So we'll give everybody a couple minutes, kind of go through an update. We had an update video out, and we've talked about memberships. For those of you who haven't seen that video, we are starting to do memberships, $1.99 a month. Just kind of supports the channel. And speaking of members, I see Alex. Hey, Alex from California. Oh, I didn't catch on that you were in California. Michael Litchford, hello from Utah. How do you say that? Sagauchi County?
I really don't know.
Some kind of Colorado boy you are.
I was a northern Colorado boy, not southern.
I'm not sure how to say that, but that's pretty cool. That's probably even more high deserty than we are down in the south of Colorado.
Panhandle, Florida, Trinidad, RW.
Hey, RW. So, yeah, we got a little held up doing chores after we finally made it home, and I was out dealing with. I lost a mother rabbit today, which doesn't happen very often. Babies are 4 weeks old, so I was trying to make accommodations for them, make sure they were going to be okay. So that took a little bit of time. So I was running a little bit far behind. The pyro dude, you guys ever hear loud explosions on the homestead?
All the time. Not from us.
We had one last week before last, and somebody said that up on the other side of Sprague River, they were saying it was a cannon. I don't know if that's true, but yeah, we get a lot of people down here shooting really big guns around us.
We're in an area that is very happy with the Second Amendment. Very pro-amendment around here.
Which is cool. Doesn't bother me, but yeah, so every now and then they're shooting stuff big enough to shake the house.
Yeah, so, I want to say there's a rock pit up here close by that is frequented a lot for that, but I think there's somebody up there that has a 50 caliber.
It sure sounds like
it. And I tell you what, it shakes the windows down here just because we're down in a meadow that it, you can feel it a little bit, but yeah, it shakes the windows.
Yeah, that's probably me. Well, now we know who to blame.
So, yep, that's us though. We're sitting down here.
All right, let's see who else we missed. Double D Chicks and Stuff Homestead. Hello. Barry Melchi, yeah, pro gun. We're pro gun too. I mean, I'm not saying that we're not. It's just there's some really big weapons being used around here sometimes. So yeah, for sure. And it doesn't help that we have 2 dogs that are phobic of the whole gun thing. Mm-hmm. One of them is an LGD who has scaled the fence come over and actually hid in the back of the pickup more than once. So we have to keep her locked up when we hear that kind of stuff. So, wow, 100 pounds of binary exploding targets.
That's
Oh
not
my!
one. I mean, that's just like what 5 pounds per target or two. I mean, it's not 100 like single.
Well, I'm just saying that's. It sounds scary. Maybe that's just me. Sounds
Yeah.
like a lot. I won't say scary. Sounds like a lot.
Sounds like a lot. Yeah.
South Carolina here. Wow, we got a collection of people from all over, well, the world really. Philippines and the Trinidad too. So how I do that. Now we know who's shaking our house.
Yeah. We got your number now, Pyro dude.
So what we were going to talk about, and as usual, if you've got questions, just type them in and we'll answer them too. But we were going to talk a little bit about growing your homestead business and your rabbit business because I'm getting a ton of questions and emails about this kind of thing. But before we get to that, since I mentioned I did lose a mama rabbit today, we'll kind of talk real briefly about what you do when that happens because I know a lot of you watch us for the rabbit content. And really, most domestic rabbits are weaning their kits at 4 to 5 weeks. So it's not ideal, but 4 to 5 weeks, they should be okay on their own as long as there's enough of them to generate enough body heat. So I have observed that they're eating pellets. I gave them a huge pile of hay tonight, and I've seen them drink out of the water bottle. So fingers crossed, I'm going to be watching them really closely over the next week. I've had this happen one other time with 4-week-old kits, and there were 3 of them, and they all made it. So I'm really hoping that that's going to be, they're going to be okay. It's a 4.5-year-old doe, and we'd been struggling for the last year and a half to get her to breed, and had finally gotten her bred, and I couldn't get her to breed to the Harleys, so I bred her to an American. So I finally get kits out of her, and I was thinking, yes, we've got her back to breeding, and now she's passed away on me. So kind of a bummer deal, but it happens. When you've got as many rabbits as we do and as many litters a year as we do, it's not unusual. So it's just kind of the way it is.
Yeah.
See, Robin, try 7 small dogs barking when husband is target practicing. We have a 7-pound dog that is absolutely terrified. Like she'll get on the couch and practically crawl in your face. So it's kind of a bummer, but she's old. She's 15. And as she gets older, everything scares her. Like this year, she developed a thing when my canning jars would ping. She thought she was being shot at. So yeah, it's kind of a bummer deal. Jacinda, I'm up in the Great White North, New Brunswick. Let's see. I admit what I do, but I'm respectful if I know it bothers someone.
Yeah.
I don't think you can really bother people in Sprague River shooting guns or anything else, really. I mean,
I think the only people you're going to bother is those that are recently moved here
that don't know what
that
to expect.
don't know what to expect, and it's just we've got a huge influx this year.
Yeah.
Of people out of Portland, out of Eugene, and that have moved here, and probably I don't know that you call it the Wild West here, but everybody's kind of just on their own, doing their own thing here. So it's sometimes I won't say bothers people, but they're just a little bit like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's really how we are here. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I see Jacinda says maybe a box they can pile into to keep warm. I actually pull my boxes around 2 weeks if they're not using them, and these guys haven't been using it in 2 weeks. So I gave them a big pile of hay. Figure if they get very cold, we'll get them to kind of pile in, and they'll be all right there. But hers always seem to survive. Yeah,
Really?
Little rabbits are pretty tough. What?
Nothing.
Having some keyboard issues.
Yeah.
Let's see. Barking of dogs will affect the rabbits. My rabbits are super used to dogs. We don't usually have any problems out of that. The biggest problems that we had with dogs is when we got our collie. And our rabbits are really used to the LGDs. 2 in particular are kind of notorious for getting out and will walk through the rabbit barn, and they don't mind great big white dogs. But for some reason, when we got her, because she was the only one that wasn't white, they would freak out every time she'd walk by the door. And
Yeah.
we've had her now a year, so they're pretty much over it. You'll have to keep me up on things because
No, I was just looking. Pyro dude said he's lived here his whole life, and asking where at. I'm trying to ask where we're at. My typing is terrible, but and Anita says hi. So Anita just joined us.
Okay, hello to Anita.
And Kita
I
Cutie.
think he told me last time. I think Pyro Dude said he was over on the other side, like between Sprague River and Chiloquin, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there. I try and keep up with everybody, but I was thinking so. Keto Cutie, expecting my first litter of silver fox on the 6th, hoping for some blues. Well, that is awesome. A girlfriend of mine is getting some when we go down into the California on February 6th. She hasn't had them in a few years, so we're bringing some back, and she's going to get back into them. Blues actually used to be recognized at one point, and they've had a standard of or certificate of development trying to get the color back, but it's not going well.
No.
Let's see. CJM Farms. Hello, how you guys doing? How are you guys doing? Okay.
We've been in town all day, so that tells you what. We had to go to town. I had to go get a new couple boxes and
I don't deal with town very well anymore, unfortunately. So I am all healed up, Jacinda. At least fingers crossed. I will undoubtedly do something, but right now I'm feeling good. I'd be dancing if I could actually dance. COD was just put in for blue a week or two ago. Well, I think so. They presented at San Diego, or excuse me, Del Mar, California, like what, 5 years ago, and didn't pass. And then I thought they tried another showing the next year and didn't pass. So yeah, as far as I knew, the certificate was expired. So it sounds like somebody's picked it up again. They've had a certificate of development on chocolates several times now too, and that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. I think they're going to have a hard time getting the chocolate to pass because so many people think they look just like the Argent Brune, and so it's gonna be tough. This one for 2024. Well, I hope they pass it because there's still a lot of people breeding the blues. I don't know if you've. I was gonna say I don't know if you've ever seen one. You've never seen one. I don't know why I even pretend that you might have seen one, but there you go. Let's see.
So Pyro Dude said he's graduated Chiloquin in the early '90s, so I'm going to say he's about my age.
Yeah, he would be
because I graduated in '93.
Yeah, so let's see. I see Matthew's on. Hello, Matthew. I've seen in several butchering videos that you look at organs to see if there's disease. What's the next step if you find signs of disease in butchered rabbits? It depends on what the disease is. Usually, the only thing you can really see when you're butchering in the organs is usually coccidia, and you'll see that in the graininess of the liver. You'll get a lot of liver spotting. There's not a whole lot of stuff that you can really easily determine just from the organs. If it's coccidia, you are going to treat with Corid. Off the top of my head, I think it's 5 cc's per gallon of water for 5 days. I'd have to look that up and double check, but I'm pretty sure that's right.
So Perry's asking how old rabbits should be when butchering.
When butchering, it depends on the breed. Most of your stuff, what you're shooting for, if you're breeding cows, New Zealand, Satins, any of those bigger rabbits, Americans, silver fox, you're shooting for 5 pounds. And that's going to put you anywhere from 8 weeks all the way up to 12 weeks, depending on the growth of the line. And then, like our Harlequins sometimes take 12 to 14 because they're a mid-sized breed. The lilacs a lot of times are taken up to 4 months, so 16 weeks. So it really does depend on what breed you're doing. Ooh, a question for you.
Solar, wind, or water generator would be the best way to go. That's going to be a tough one because it's going to depend on you and where you are. So for us, we have a lot of wind, we have a lot of sunshine, but we have very little water. So it kind of depends. If you had a stream that ran all year round, I would say investigate in water. If you have a lot of sun, it's a great thing to investigate. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. And then if you have a lot of wind. So for us, a good combination would be solar because we have a sun most of the time. But when we don't have sun, we have wind. So for us, I would put in both. And then it really depends on payback. If you have power available today, you may find that if you did the cost analysis, it may only pay back in like 28 years or something, and you're automatically going to have to replace your panels because they're kind of out of date and they've lost their efficiency. So it's kind of depend depend on a little bit of all of it. Really, what's great for you and what your goal is, because we didn't have anything here. It was basically just a bare property when we got here.
Well, and we remember there was that lady up in Bly that came over and bought rabbits from me, and they were
Hmm.
on a wind generator for like the last 20 years. The thing you have to have is sustained winds.
Hmm.
Most of them can't handle gusty winds, and that's what we really have a lot of is gusty winds. They do have some newer stuff that it does better with gusts, but you're still going to have what was it, 5, 6 mile an
Yeah.
hour sustained winds?
Uh,
Oh no, not buffering again.
yeah.
Uh,
Have a stream that goes through the property. So it kind of depends. I mean, a stream may or may not have enough water flow, and I would say that's one thing you've got to figure out is how much water flow does it take to really make enough electricity. And you also have to know how much electricity you need. For us, because we have incubators and all that, during the winter it's not that bad. We probably use maybe 8 kilowatt hours a day
yeah.
because we don't do a lot in the daytime. I run maybe a computer and washing machine here and there. But in the summertime when we run a lot of power, we'll use upwards of 30 kilowatt hours a day just because we have two incubators on and brooding pads, and we run the well to water the garden, fill the water tanks. I mean, we can do a lot of power in one single day in the summer.
Yeah, and they're saying that they're in the valleys, it's pretty windy. I would investigate in both,
Yeah.
because it sounds like you're probably a good candidate for both wind and water.
Yeah.
So I would look at both. I mean, I love the idea of hydropower, but there's no there's no
Yeah.
water. I mean, we have no water. We don't see rain for months, and there's no we're not close enough to the Sprague River or anything like that. So
Yeah. If I would do my best to diversify it for the best costs,
yeah,
because it seems like you can never, it's not always windy, it's not always sunny. And maybe the hydropower flows enough that it's always going to be there available. But I'd always worry the days you get a freak storm, let's say, and it blocks it up or freezes it or anything else, and then you're out of power. What do you do?
yeah,
Maybe it's a backup generator. It kind of depends.
yeah. That would be kind of cool. Generational homestead. What is the best animal you raised? Um, in terms of overall favorites, I loved my donkeys that I had. They were probably my favorite. Um, Overall, for a homestead animal that I feel like I get the most bang for the buck out of, I almost always go with the rabbits because
Yeah.
we sell them and we eat them, and I get some killer manure for the garden. So I feel like the rabbits are probably my biggest bang for the buck. I may feel differently later this year when I start milking the goats, but right now the rabbits are pretty much my favorite. What about you?
Goats.
You like your goats?
Most days.
You don't like them during
I
the rut.
I don't like the males during the rut because they're horrible smelling and they always want to give you hugs. And
Our boys are friendly.
at feeding time, they are just obnoxious. They sit and yell at you and till you feed them, and then it's quiet and peaceful. And I really enjoy them at that point when they're eating.
Let's see. It's funny, I have a hydro pool on the property ready to
I want
go,
to
but I'm
stay
just
hot. Yeah.
okay. Well, I mean, there are benefits to both for sure. We're off grid not by choice
Well, yeah,
exactly. I mean,
yeah,
we're off grid because we can't get power down in here for less than the low price of $250,000. At least that's what
yeah,
they quoted us years ago. So
yeah. So Perry, I'll answer your question because I can do this for the rabbits. For the cold, do we use heaters for the rabbits? None. Doesn't matter how cold it gets, we don't use heaters. We can't afford the power alone to do it. And then we've never raised pigs. Talked about it, but never done it.
yeah, when it comes to heaters, there's way too many barn fires for me. Period. And rabbits really don't need it. We also don't use heaters for the chickens either. We've been all the way down to 30 below zero when we
Hmm.
first moved, and I had just gotten here with a bunch of rabbits from Mississippi, and I thought I've killed everybody,
Yeah.
and they were fine. I mean, rabbits really do take cold weather really well. We do give them, if we're going to be below zero, we do give them like boxes and things stuffed with hay and straw. But really, they don't need heaters. I think you run into a lot more coat problems. They tend to molt, and when they're molting, they're not breeding. So if you're doing a lot of artificial heat, you actually will screw up their molt season, and they don't seem to understand exactly what season they're in, and it can cause all kinds of breeding issues. So
Hmm.
I don't do any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's same with like chickens. Those that force their chickens to lay through the winter and that they go through a molt, and then you keep lights on them to force them to lay out through the winter. Their natural instinct, or whatever you want to call it, is based on Mother Nature's weather cycles and daylight. And if you are affecting that, you're basically changing their biorhythms, really.
Yeah.
And they don't understand if they're in winter or summer or anything else because it's constant.
So Generational Homestead says they enjoy goat babies. I see Robin said goats too.
Yeah.
We like the goats for their antics until they do stupid things like get stuck in the fence
Yeah, I've had that before.
or find a way out of the fence.
I still have one from last year that we named Miracle, that she's still small enough to squeeze her little butt through the fence. And so I've had to keep her locked up because she will just run the property all hours of the day.
Let's
Mama
see.
Triad Homestead. Welcome. Oh, Mama
Mama
tried.
tried. I know the screen isn't
Yeah.
very big.
Yeah.
Good evening to y'all too.
Do you breed,
Robin, pigs can be dangerous.
do you breed hybrid rabbits?
No, I don't do any hybrids anymore. I like the consistency of the purebreds. So we do Americans, we do Harlequins, we do Triantas, and we do purebred unpedigreed satins. At least right now.
So Matt's asking if someone wants to start looking into rabbits, what breed do they recommend? So really, it's going to depend on what you want out of them. Are you doing them for meat? Are you doing them for pelt? Are you doing them for profitability, for show? I mean, there's kind of depends on what you want out of them.
uh, yeah, exactly what he said.
How's that, huh?
You can tell he listens to me talk all the time because that's pretty much exactly what I would say.
Yeah.
Usually I tell people any breed that I raise is what you want to start with. No, I really don't. It really does depend on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do a meat rabbit with good pelt, I recommend something like the American or the
Meat and
silver
profit.
fox. Um, okay, I will say this: I never use the P word when it comes to raising livestock, and that's profit.
Yeah.
While the end goal is to make some money back, when you set your mind on profit, you have to you kind of diverge, right? So when you get too hung up on the profit idea, quality tends to suffer. So I don't ever think about profit. I think about quality, and because my quality is so good, I make pretty good profit.
Yeah.
So don't focus on that part of things. If you're really thinking about meat and raising a good animal, then yeah, I right now I will say there is better money in the heritage breeds and more interest. So you want to look for stuff like cinnamon, palomino, silver fox, Americans, Bevrins. I'm trying to think what else is real big right now. Um, those are kind of the ones that, at least on the West Coast, that I'm seeing the most interest in, and they are all rare breed stuff. And I know my waiting list right now in the Americans is huge, like huge, huge.
Yeah.
So, getting back to Ferdy's question of
Why?
why I don't do hybrids, I don't like the inconsistency of them. There's really almost nothing to be gained in crossbreeding. Um, Not only do the characteristics not come through consistently, but rabbits don't hybridize in the way that you get with beef cattle and a lot of things where you get that hybrid vigor. You really don't get that in rabbits. The only exception to that is when you cross the New Zealand to the Californian. And I don't know why that is because neither one is an old breed, but you do get a better meat carcass. and a better growth rate when you hybridize those two breeds together, but it does not work with most other breeds. It just doesn't, and it's mostly because we're all European rabbits. Where you get it in cattle, a lot of cattle are from different parts of the world. They've been domesticated for hundreds of years. Rabbits, most of our breeds aren't that old. They just aren't. So you don't get that hybrid vigor that you see in other species.
All right, so Homestead is asking, how many meat rabbits should I raise at a time? The question is, back at you on this, how much meat do you need for your family? And so
And what else are you raising?
yeah, and so for us, I would say we probably eat equal parts of rabbit and anything else. So we eat a lot of poultry also, between chicken, turkey, quail. The quail's new, so don't take that as like an equal third because it's kind of new. We have pork in the fridge or the freezer because it was given to us last year from my in-laws or Nikki's parents. They got a couple pigs, so we have a lot of pork in there. And then I don't know. I guess we don't eat a lot of seafood or beef, but we have some here and there. But really, it kind of goes back to the meat rabbit math video we have
Yeah, how
that talks
much
about.
do you need? So if you
Yeah.
haven't watched Meat Rabbit Math, you might want to take a look at that. It'll give you an idea how much you can produce, and that'll help you kind of better answer that question. I do tell everybody, if you're going to start, like say you want 2 does, start with 2 does and 2 bucks. That way you've got a spare buck if something happens. But it really does depend on how much meat you're looking to produce. So I
Yeah.
know that's kind of every situation's a little different.
All right. So Cindy is asking about physical distance between does and bucks. Do you keep them in
I
cages next to
don't
each
want to
other?
mess with breeding behavior when it's time.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to assume that you're asking about rabbits because I always assume that.
Yeah.
Um, but I keep them in cages side by side. On the goat front, well, so I should say in the rabbits, it depends on the buck. Most of my bucks in the Americans, I keep on the bottom row of my stackers, and I run just a buck row. It kind of discourages a lot of pea spraying and that kind of stuff.
Rabbits,
Okay,
yes.
I figured most of my questions are almost always rabbits, and then if I was wrong, I figured we'd go with goats. Um, yeah, it depends on the breed. Some of the breeds, like when we raised New Zealand's, I absolutely couldn't keep my bucks near my does. They just ran the fence or the wired partitions, and I had trouble keeping weight on them and that kind of thing. So it kind of depends on what your setup is and what breed you're working with. My Harlequins, I put bucks right next to does. My Triantas, I put the bucks next to does, and my Satins are doing fine that way too. The Americans, we noticed we had more pea spraying behavior, and same thing as the New Zealand's, they would kind of pace the fence a little bit or the partition, and it was just harder to keep weight on them. When I elevated the girls up above them, it kind of settled down. So you kind of have to play it by rabbit. We had Rex, and the Rex didn't have any problems side by side. So it kind of really does depend on what you're doing. Um, Robin, are the Americans nicer personality? Yes. Think of them kind of like um I won't everybody says big dogs. They're like fall out of the cage friendly.
Hmm.
When I go The reason that my feeders are mounted to the outside and I can walk down the aisle and feed is because when I used to have to open up the door and reach in to feed, chores took me 3 times longer because everybody needed their head scratched and everybody wanted to have fall out of the cage, and so I was constantly trying to wrestle 10 and 12-pound rabbits back
Yep.
into their cage because they needed some loving. So, um, yeah, they're really friendly. I mean, they're people get intimidated because they're a longer body and they're bigger, so they even though they weigh what some of the New Zealand's and other things weigh, they look much bigger, and so they tend to intimidate a lot of people, especially the red-eyed whites. But they're super friendly. They really are good rabbits.
All right. So Pete's Worldwide Reptiles is asking about feed that is 15.7% protein, 3.8% fat, and 17.1% fiber. Good
Um,
mix.
no, I don't like it. The protein is fine. Oh wait, hold on. Yeah, I read that right.
Yeah.
15.7 on protein is fine. 3.8 fat is high, but the fiber is horrible. So you want about a 20% fiber on your rabbits to keep the gut moving. In that kind of situation, if you add enough hay to get the fiber where you want it, you're going to end up with a protein count of about 12, maybe 11. So I don't like that. If that's all you had, I guess you could make it work. There are things you can do to add to bump your protein up and add to it, but yeah, I'm not crazy about that. That's not a good overall feed. I think you'll have some issues there. Cindy,
Yeah.
champagnes and hopefully silver fox soon. God bless you and good luck with those champagnes. We did champagnes. I will never do champagnes again. Beautiful rabbits. I will tell you going in, if you do not keep them in production, if you let them have more than a month or two off, you will never get them to breed again. They are the most finicky rabbits I have ever owned. And I've got a couple of other friends who had warned me and had raised them before, and I thought I knew better, and I didn't. So good luck with them. Silver fox don't have that problem, but the champagnes get a little rough.
All right. So keto cutie. I gotta get that right. Keto cutie is dealing with a nasty little doling, which happens.
How old is she? Because there could be a couple of things going on. Silver fox usually are very sweet, and I would wonder what her background is because unfortunately, a lot of the heritage breeds sometimes you get stuff bred in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I'm gonna watch for that. If you can tell me how old she is, I might be able to give you an idea what the problem is.
All right. So Anita's asking about breeding quail as far as feed conversion.
Um, I'm gonna be totally honest with you, Anita. I have not raised them long enough to have done all the math on it yet. Uh, I based on how much feed I'm going through, I think they're worthwhile. And part of that is that I'm not feeding the way that everybody suggests you feed with the really expensive high protein feed. I'm not doing that. I'm only doing that till they're about 7 weeks and then I'm rolling them over to a layer feed. So right now it doesn't seem like it's all that bad. But I have because I haven't done the numbers, I don't want to lie to you and say that they are great. We're going to find that out here in the next month or two is probably what's going to be the deal.
All right. So Perry's asking about breeding dad to daughter and mom to son, doing line breeding.
Yep, that's just a basic line breed. If
Mm-hmm.
you haven't watched the video where we talk about the line breeding, I would go back and watch that because we do talk about the terminology and what it means. But yes, you can do that. You can actually line breed rabbits back in safely 5 generations. I've seen it where they say 10, but I don't know.
All right. So RW is asking about keeping bucks side by side because some of his younger bucks are feeling intimidated when it comes to breeding, which we've had before. We have bucks that some don't mind and some really don't like it being next to other bucks or older bucks, right? So,
Yeah, I've had some aggressive bucks that kind of get a little
mhm.
nasty with the younger boys through the cage wire. So, um, it's totally dependent on the animals themselves. Sometimes they really don't do well. I like to play musical rabbits with mine. If somebody's not performing well somewhere, I just move them until we can try and get them, um, somewhere that they are comfortable. So it really kind of depends. But if you can't do them side by side, don't pull one out, move it around, and see if you can get it in a spot. The other thing you can try and do is do a solid divider between them. Sometimes that helps.
Mhm.
You know, it, it's a catch 22 because a lot of times the younger bucks that are maybe not as confident will learn a lot from the older bucks watching them breed. So it can be kind of helpful. I've had slow maturing bucks that just weren't quite getting it, and I like to put them next to a dominant buck and breed that dominant buck a few times and see if that kind of spurs them on. But sometimes it doesn't work. If it's really causing a problem, then I would just move them around. It makes no difference where you put them as long as everybody's getting along.
Yeah.
Okay, so where are we?
So Kathy joined us.
Okay.
Joy Bless Life just joined us, and then Darcy responded back to Pete about the fiber because Pete's Worldwide
Okay.
Reptiles
Was the
asked
one that
about it.
asked about the feed?
Yeah.
Um Yes, Darcy is absolutely right. I like that answer. That's very much it. The way the rabbit gut works is fiber is absolutely critical to keep the GI tract moving. And when you don't have enough fiber, the whole shebangy stops. And once it stops, they die. They bloat and they die. That's pretty much how it goes. Uh, I see Devin join. Hey, Devin. Kathy, how are the quail healing up? They're looking good. I was trying to briefly look at them tonight just because I was kind of in a hurry, running behind. But um, it looks like most of the scabs are coming off, so I'm hopeful. I think what I'm going to end up doing. So I've got a pair left together, and so I'm pretty sure, pretty confident that it is the female that was the problem. So I think I'm going to pull them out. I'm going to put all these females back in with the male, and I'm just going to take this other girl and give her to a single uh, roux that I've got and see if that does anything. So just kind of one of those things.
So Joy Bless Life asks, what does rabbit taste like in comparison? I'll tell you, it tastes a lot like chicken.
Everything does.
Everything tastes like chicken. Somehow they're related, but it's really kind of I won't say it's bland, but it's kind of like if you have ever had a succulent roasted chicken that didn't have a flavor with it. It was just like a really good juicy meat. It tastes like that. It's very comparable to chicken though.
You do have to watch it. Rabbit has such a low. I swear my collie's shedding, and I think I've got dog hair in my eye. But uh, you do have to watch it. Rabbit is very very lean, so it's all about how you cook it. But yeah, it's very mild
Yeah.
flavored. We use it interchangeably with chicken recipes all the time.
Yeah.
So
Yep. So
um,
Cutie says her rabbit was 16 weeks. Friendly when she picked her up. Just kind of turned as a pill lately.
for the last month, um, I don't think it's your quarantine cage is too small. Did you handle her at all when you first got her? Because I tell everybody no handling for the first 2
Mhm.
weeks at all when you get a new rabbit. You gotta let them kinda settle in. If they don't, they get a little aggressive. The other thing that could be going on, if she's 16 weeks, she might be an early sexual mature, and she might just be hormonal, especially right now because the days are getting longer or getting ready to roll into the spring. It could just be hormones, and the thing that sucks about that is silver fox really need to wait until 8 to 9 months to breed. So just be patient. Unfortunately, if she's lunging at you, there's not much you can do. Like if you act aggressive, it'll get worse. You can try. A friend of mine has always had really good luck. I haven't, but she's always had good luck with taking a rabbit that's kind of like that out, and then she'll just hold it all the way through chores,
Right.
and sometimes that helps.
So Pete wants to know how to make fiber higher. You just want to add hay?
Yep, you're going to add a lot of hay. Um, we have, and I Yeah, we do have a video. If you go back into I can't even think of the name of it. It's where we talk about setting up a spreadsheet and figuring out how to do a weighted average. So you can actually go in there, just Google roughly whatever kind of hay you have and what the percentages are and work that out. So what'll happen is when you add a whole bunch of hay and increase all that fiber, the protein of hay tends to be really low, like anywhere from 8 to 12%. So it's going to drop the protein overall of what you're feeding. So you can add, especially being that low in fiber, you're going to add almost equal parts hay to equal feed, but then you're going to have to come up with a way to bump your protein back up. You can do that a number of ways. I want to say black oil sunflower seeds, they're pretty high in protein. Calf manna, be careful with it. It can cause all kinds of other problems, but there's a lot of different things you can add in to try and bump that uh, protein level back up.
And then he's also asked about the nutritional requirements for Cornish cross. And that one we didn't mix any feed. We just used commercial feed for all of
Yeah, I
our.
use commercial feed on it. I want to say our feed for the Cornish was like a 22%
Something
protein.
about that. Yeah.
I just use a commercial meat grower right from the start. Well, we ran one bag of chick starter through them just because the commercial feed that I could get really didn't come in crumbles. So we made sure they were big enough to eat the pellets. Okay, so what am I missing here?
Not too much yet.
Okay.
Kathy says she's too far away because she'd trade us a mail, but I think 3.5 hours for us, that's not that far away. We we drive a lot to. I mean, we go
I'm
to
driving to go get rabbits in a week and a half,
yeah,
and
it's
I'm
like
going,
3.5 hours
yeah,
away,
so
and
that's not far.
I've driven 3.5 hours, and
Well, I'll
all
just have
that.
to Google that and see exactly where you're at.
Yeah, 3.5 hours isn't much for us. We just need to make it a big trip because that's typically what we do.
Devin says he had a Frenchie Angora that had a little attitude until he bred her. Yep, that's unfortunately girls get rather hormonal,
Yeah,
and it's not every breed, and it's not every rabbit, so it just kind of depends. Um,
Pete's asking about oats.
no, oats is not going to bring up your protein. Oats will not bring up your protein or your fiber enough to really help, unfortunately. Um, send me send me an email, SR Homestead at Yahoo, and let's talk about it offline and see if I can come up with some ideas for you on what to do.
Oh, outside of Eugene. Out of Eugene, so
Yeah, my girlfriend just moved down to Winston, so I don't go over there quite as much, but um yeah, I was just thinking about going over there the other day for something.
I've been trying to go over there to pick up cars.
Like he needs another car. We'll work that out, Kathy. Sometime we'll get together. We'll either come see you or something like that. Because yeah, I could use some new quail lines for sure. I could use some
Well,
more stuff.
no, that your cousin was coming down here to get rid.
Yeah, we haven't figured out when.
Okay.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've had some great questions, but we kind of derailed from what we were looking at. So let's talk a little bit about growing a business off of your farm.
Yeah, I'll
I'll
get
have
it.
Kanan type it in, Pete. Um, so we've been at this for a long time, right? So we've been here for 7 years, and then we were in Mississippi for roughly 10, and then we were in Tennessee before that. So the biggest thing when you're starting out and starting to grow your homestead business is you've really got to start with your identity. And the biggest thing, we talk about this all the time, the biggest thing we see homesteaders that are trying to start a business screw up, for lack of a better word, is not being consistent with your branding. So what we see happen is you've got one name on Facebook, you've got another name on YouTube, you go by something else on Instagram, and it's not consistent. Um, One of the things, yes, we have Spraguer Rabbits and Poultry as our rabbitry, but Spraguer Homestead is the homestead, and it melds together better. But what we see a lot of time is like it's JoJo's Bunny on, Little Homestead in the Valley. Well, nobody's ever going to associate the two of those together. So you've got to be able to kind of decide what you're doing, and what the overall theme is going to be. So pick something, and whatever that something is, if it's like us, Spraguer Homestead, and you need to build everything around that. That's kind of the first step to getting going, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest things people don't. I'll tell you, coming from the car world and all that stuff, that right there was one of the biggest things that people don't associate. They don't appreciate how well everything is interconnected.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, because we had a lot of people who contact us before we started really tying everything together. It didn't used to be that you could tie all this stuff together. Um, People would watch us on YouTube and then hit Google and find us on Facebook or
Mm-hmm.
Instagram because our name is the same everywhere. Um, and getting to Matthew's question, talking about social media, that's the next step, right? So you've got an overall image and an overall plan, and that's kind of the thing, right? You've got your image, and you've got to decide what it is that you're trying to do. Are you selling rabbits? Are you selling chickens? Whatever it is, and then you need to start advertising, and you need to be everywhere. Um, Matthew's asking about the best social media platform. Honestly, right now, I have no idea. Everything is totally in flux. 3 years ago, I'd have told you that if you're not on Facebook, you're a fool. Right now, Facebook is not
They're
reaching everybody, right? Because a lot of people are leaving.
yeah.
I don't like MeWe. We're trying it, but I don't like it. I don't like the platform. There's not a lot of people on. And if you're trying to do a business page, they're going to nail you for like $5 a month. And I'm like, for a platform that's not really up to speed, I don't know about that. I've never done Twitter. I
I
don't
have.
I don't feel like for the homestead business that it's relevant, because really to be noticed on Twitter, you've got to be on there all the time. And if you're homesteading, you don't have time for that. You just don't. It's everything I can do to sometimes I'll sit down in the morning and load up a whole bunch of posts on Facebook and schedule them out. And that works for me. And I can't do the other thing. Instagram is huge in homesteading right now, but it's really hard to stand out from the crowd. There's if you go on Instagram and type in homestead, there's so many homestead channels that you kind of get lost. So it's kind of a hard thing to do. Um, it, unfortunately, YouTube is becoming the same thing. There's
Yeah.
just so many new channels that have started in the last year because people unfortunately think you can make a lot of money,
Yeah.
which doesn't really work.
The thing I'll say, Matthew, there's three big players still. YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram are the three big players. Now, granted, all of them are starting to lose a little bit of interest. TikTok is huge for the videos, and you're starting to see like us doing the shorts out, which are 60 seconds or less.
Mhm.
YouTube is now trying to take TikTok on head on, and that's why you're starting to see those shorts. Um,
I think it's fadsy though.
I
I think
think it
it's
is.
going to disappear.
I think it's fadsy too, but a year ago, people were saying, you got to be on TikTok. We both tried it. It just didn't fit what we were doing. So I would say pick the three or four big ones there and do the ones that make sense for you, because we've kind of tried to play in all of them. I've been on Twitter. I have Vero. I have Instagram. What else have I done? I've done Snapchat. I mean, I tried them all when they were all out there.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I got rid of Snapchat, I got rid of Twitter, I have Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, because those are what makes sense to us. It's stuff that we can take videos of, and it just fits with what we can do. Because there's no point in, I guess, putting yourself out there for something that's not going to be profitable. And if you can't make it a good habit, it's not going to stick. You'll do it for a little bit. We've tried some Instagram challenges, and like every single day you're going to put 3 posts, and
I usually make it about 7 days and I'm
yeah,
done.
so do whatever makes sense for you, and then go into that pretty hard.
Yeah. I will say, especially where rabbits are concerned, Facebook is still the place. There's a lot of rabbit people going over to MeWe, but until it gets a little bit bigger, I can't say that that's going to be the place. So beyond social media, the biggest thing you can do is network, especially if you're going to be selling rabbits
Hmm.
or any other livestock. Network with like-minded people, right?
Yeah.
So like we do kinder goats, and I've gotten a couple of people now who have reached out to me looking for goats, and I'm not advertising my kinder goats. It's because I'm on some of the kinder groups on Facebook, and the breeders that I bought from know that I'm here, so they're referring people to me because this is where I'm at. Rabbits are the same way. So especially when you hook up with a lot of people who maybe aren't doing your breed, like joining your local association is really really good for this. um People learn who has what breeds. Like I get a lot of people still who contact me about silver fox or American chinchilla or lilacs, and I don't do any of these, but I've got a lot of friends who do, so I send these people out to my friends. So that's a big thing to do, is absolutely network. And I talk to my feed store guys all the time, so they know, like they've got my number. If somebody comes in looking for rabbits, I'm the first person they hand out. It doesn't matter that the wall, as all feed stores do, there's an advertising cork board. It doesn't matter that there's 20 different rabbitries on that board. I'm the one that they talk to a lot. I buy a lot of feed. They know my deal. So I'm the one that they send people to. And maybe I don't have the rabbits that they're looking for, but I'm their point of contact.
Yeah.
When we were buying a lot from Coastal, it was the same way. The guys knew who I was. I have magnets on the side of my car, and I put that stuff everywhere. Like, we wear our Spring River Homestead shirts into town, but I have magnets on the car.
You got interrupted at lunch today. We were sitting in our car eating Taco Bell at lunch today at Coastal, and a guy literally put his dog food in his truck and then walked over and kind of knocked on the window. You guys do rabbits? We're like, I mean a taco. Yeah, I do rabbits.
And that's happened to me at
Yeah.
KFC and other
Yeah.
places too. So it just kind of, but yeah, so you've got to really foster relationships, especially when you're talking about homesteading, right? This isn't necessarily a tire service, which is equally important to network, but homesteaders do business with other homesteaders. It's just kind of the way it is. And animal folk will do business with animal folk.
Yeah.
So people have come over here to buy goats, and on the way in, on the sign on the end of the driveway, it says Sprague Rabbits and Poultry, Sprague Homestead.
Mm-hmm.
And so people come in, and usually somebody will say, "Oh, you do rabbits too? Well, so and so, a friend of mine, is looking for rabbits." I've done no advertising there other than it's sitting on a static sign at the end of my driveway.
Yeah.
But I'll talk to anybody about rabbits at any given time. I mean, to his ever loving sadness, I can talk about rabbits
Yeah.
for hours to anybody.
I'll say though, Matthew, don't dismiss what a website can do, even a free one, because I know Nikki still gets contacted from web searches for rabbit stuff that we haven't done in 2 years, right? We haven't done champagnes in like 2-3 years,
Yeah.
and people will still contact us because they saw a YouTube video off of a web page. I did my own business this year for car stuff, and it's kind of like the umbrella that keeps all of my stuff together. I've got all these intangibles of social media and videos and everything else, and I still get people now that come into my website to ask me questions because they see the pages of stuff I've done for like Nikki's vinyl wrap right on her Suburban that's black and orange. People still come and ask questions about that off of a website. They've never
Mhm.
seen a video, they've never seen anything else, but they've seen the vinyl wrap and they're like, "Whoa, I got to check this out."
Yeah. And take advantage of some of the free listings that are out there. So rabbitbreeders.us, I think, is the big one. I'm listed on it. I'm listed on it. They're not good about updating things. I will say that.
Mhm.
So I'm still listed with champagnes. So sometimes I still get people that contact me about champagnes off of it. But again, they're contacting you, right? So I don't breed champagnes anymore, but usually the first thing they ask is, well, I'm looking for champagnes. And I say, no, I don't, but I can refer you to some people. And then they always follow up with, well, what breeds do you do? And so then that's my opportunity to teach about the breeds that I have
Mhm.
and try and bring people on board to the breeds that I do. So everything that you can do to get out there, and it takes time. I mean, don't get me wrong. I show really, really actively when there are shows. And I'm involved in a lot of associations. Involved in Oregon League, which I don't know that that's ever done me any good other than I pop up every now and then in a newsletter of a new member or a renewing member or whatever. But it's all contacts, right? So it's all, at this point, everybody in the state of Oregon pretty much knows me for Harlequins. It's and for Americans. I take them to every show. I push them every chance I get. I've got a Harlequin sticker and an American sticker on the back of my truck. The Harlequins on the side of the truck on the Sprague Rabbits magnets. And yeah, I talk it up everywhere.
Yeah.
The people at the feed store, sometimes the girls that don't know me will say, well, they're checking me out, go, "Oh, you have rabbits?" And I take that as an opportunity. And I've handed out business cards to cashiers. Being involved with 4-H is also huge. If you've got a breed that is good with kids, uh, sign up to be part of your mentor program in 4-H. You don't have to be a leader. This year I'm a resource leader, meaning that I'm the person that these leaders call, because unfortunately we're in a county where there's not a lot of real rabbit knowledgeable people, but the rabbit leaders can call me and I can come in and do a clinic. They can ask me questions. They can send the kids to me. I'm kind of already mentoring 2 different 4-H kids. One, I'm not even sure where he's at. He contacted me recently, and we're doing basically mentorship right over email,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of walking him through stuff. So everything you can do to just get out there. That's kind of the big key, and keeping your message consistent.
All right. So Alex is asking about books, and he asked on one of our things on the members thing area today. So
I did see that as we were rushing home, so I didn't get a chance to ask. When it comes to rabbits, I think I've read just about all of them. The only book that I recommend is Bob Bennett's Stories Guide to Raising Rabbits. There are things I don't like in that. Bob was very old school, and so he was old school in a time that giving antibiotics blindly, and I'm going to say blindly, was okay. And so he talks about a lot of antibiotic use in his herd, which I don't approve of. But everything in there otherwise is pretty much gold. I like a lot of Bob stuff. He was not big on mixing feed or anything, but he talked a lot about doing a really high quality commercial feed, which is important. So um, that's where I would start. That's really the gold as far as books is concerned. Everything else, there's a lot of nuggets, in other books, but unless you know what you're looking at, unfortunately, some of it's not the greatest.
yeah. So let's see.
Marzi said we got some rabbit
No.
from our butcher.
Yeah. So let me go back to generational homestead that they're not a salesman, and I agree. I don't know that Nikki and I are either very good salespeople.
No, I'm terrible at it. And I was a salesperson for a while. I did
Yeah.
kitchen design.
Yeah. And so the biggest thing, the thing that people are great salespeople is that they can read body language and they can find the opening to do that. Some of them are naturally outgoing and they can create the opening to talk about stuff, but the key to being a salesperson is finding the opening, whether you create it or it's there. A lot of times, like our car magnets and that will be the opening because people will see it and they'll say something about it. We've had a lot of times where, honestly, with COVID in the last year, we've had a lot of people walk up to vehicles because we have magnets on the door. And like
Best $80 I've ever spent in my life.
right, that they'll walk up and be like, "Hey, do you guys have rabbits?" Or they'll see the poultry. We've sold local poultry where we're out sitting at lunch, and somebody's like, "Hey, you guys sell poultry?" And you're like, "Yep, we sure do." Well, I'm interested in such and such, and it sells itself because we don't haggle on price. Everything is set price, and it's like we have this available, or we can put you on a wait list,
Hmm.
and it's no different. I mean, you don't have to. I don't think you have to be the person that has to be the pushy car salesman, and you don't have to feel like you have to be, the one that's always like, as soon as somebody walks through his door, you have to jump on them and ask them what they're there for and all that. A lot of times, people that are interested will show a little bit of interest, maybe just with one question, and then you start asking qualifying questions to open the discussion.
Well, and another part of that, not being a salesman, you don't have to be. Focus first on your reputation. The people who are trying to sell you stuff are trying to convince you that you need it,
Yeah,
right? I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. If you want rabbits, I've got quality rabbits and I will sell you quality rabbits. But if you don't want my rabbits, it doesn't hurt my feelings in the least. That also goes to the whole thing of I take this from Joel Salatin, and I don't like everything that he does, but one thing that he said, either in an interview that I listened to in a podcast or in one of his books, is set your prices and don't apologize. When I first started, I sold my pedigreed Harlequins for $20. And that was what, 6 years ago?
yeah, because that was what the market at the time was valued them
Yeah,
at.
because that's what people told me they were worth, right? I knew what I had into them for cost wise, how few of them were showable, and how hard I worked at it. And I started going, wait, this doesn't work. And so as I'm reading through Salatin's book, he's like, price it for what you've got into it and don't apologize. So when I hit $50, everybody on the West Coast went, "You're nuts. Junior pedigreed Harlequins, $50, you're crazy." And I never one time apologized for it. Now we're up to 75, and this is now where we finally hit a point where I feel like they're actually, one, they're generating some actual income, but two, they they are paying for what I've got into them finally, really. Because you get very few that are really high quality show animals. So but I don't apologize, and I don't haggle. The only time I'm going to haggle is if you are taking more than 4, then we come down on price just a little bit. But other than that, I hold to it. I've got feed and time and energy invested in all this, and so it matters. And hold on to that price. I'm not saying you should walk in tomorrow as an unknown and decide that your silver fox are worth $150. That's ridiculous. If you're not well known, you need to really research around your area as to what they're going for and price accordingly. But as you stack up wins and that kind of stuff, there's no harm in raising your price. You've done the work, right? I have a reputation. I don't sell garbage rabbits. And if you're not happy with your rabbit, I'll buy the rabbit back. So it's just kind of one of those things that, um, I'm not a big, like I said, I'm not a big salesperson. You come to me because you want a Harlequin, and I tell you the price, and that's it. And if you don't want it, it's fine. And it's the same way with the Americans and the rest of them. And we are getting really far behind on some of this stuff.
No, no, Mark.
No, I missed a few of these. I know I did.
So one question was.
Hold on. I want to make sure that I didn't miss some of this. Okay.
I'm watching.
Okay, well, Marzi said she got rabbits from a butcher, never tried it before, and it's just like a sweet chicken. And that's what a lot of people say.
Yeah.
Matthew asked if you're able to sell butchered meat there.
I answered him.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I'm typing.
Yeah, and it does depend on where you're at. In the state of Oregon, we can't sell it.
Right.
But in a lot of states that you can, they're under the same poultry guidelines.
And so Marzi asked about 4-H questions.
Yes, essay questions if I'm giving rabbits away. Did you answer that?
I did. I tried to qualify them and understand what they're interested in, why.
I actually have a list from Ashland 4-H here in Oregon, and I'll see if I can get it to post to the community page later. But I actually have a sheet of what they recommend. So it's mostly asking that kind of same question that Kanan had.
So Anel Cook asked about a New Zealand rabbit. It was pregnant, pulled hair, and didn't give birth. What happened? And so Robin said it was probably too much antibiotic resistance.
No, I think she was answering what I was saying earlier about antibiotics.
Okay.
Anel, if she pulled, it sounds like a false pregnancy to me. If she went through all the trouble and then didn't give birth, that happens a lot in the winter. Because our hormones are so screwy from the low light levels. I would imagine that's what it is. If she didn't do anything at all, it's a false pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be a problem though. Just wait until she comes out of it and go ahead and rebreed her. Yep. But yeah, Robin was saying too much antibiotic resistance when I was talking about Bob and the dosages in the book.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And yes, I agree. We don't use antibiotics for anything unless we actually need it. Okay. Now I think we're pretty much caught up.
Yeah. Devin had the comment of $20. OMG. So we've created quite a market in 7 years. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I still occasionally will get people who contact me and want to buy a rabbit. And yeah, they're like, well, aren't they 10 or $15? And I'm like, you can get one at the feed store for 10 or 15 if you really want that. So yeah, because Robin's a nurse.
Okay. Well,
I figured when we were talking about antibiotics, that was probably the thing. Yeah. Let's see, Marzi says, once you start playing the undercutting game, you can never get out. I absolutely agree. And I have my girlfriend who lives like half an hour from me. We have gone rounds about this because she is notorious for caving in and giving people discounts. And she can't get out of the cycle, right? So she started off when I hit $50, she started selling for $50. And people would come to her and be like, oh, I just can't afford it. Would you take 40? Well, she started doing that. And then the next guy would come along and say, well, I can only do 35. And for almost a year and a half, she didn't sell any rabbits to anybody because she was trying to clean the slate. Because that's what I told her to do. I was like, you've sold so many now at $30. You can't get back to 50. Like, the word is out. The reputation is that you will take what somebody gives you, and so it's hard to get back to that. So I definitely agree. Once you start playing the Walmart type undercutting game, it's really hard to come out of it.
Yeah.
I see you answering, so I never know what I should be
Well,
answering.
Pete was asking about resting chicken meat like you have to rabbit, and I said yes. We rested 3 days before eating or
Yeah,
processing. And then Nell came back and said she thought she had babies. That's why she's confused.
I felt that she had babies. This is why I'm so confused. Like, did you? I don't know what you mean by that. Are you saying that you're pretty sure she was pregnant?
Like pulpate,
Yeah,
pulpated her, right?
palpate.
Palpate.
Yeah.
Palpate's
Um,
probably liquefying her.
yeah. I don't know what a pulpate
Don't
is.
liquefy your rabbits, please.
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, they do a lot of wild stuff when they're doing a false pregnancy. They'll get hormonal, they'll go off their feed, they'll pull fur, they'll gain weight, they'll do the whole 9 yards. So, um, my rule of thumb there is if a doe acts like she's pregnant and goes through the whole thing, but you never see blood under the cage, she wasn't pregnant. I've had just a couple that did the false pregnancy thing. I've had an
Yeah.
American and I had a Champagne do it to me. I had a Champagne do it to me 3 times. And so then she went to freezer camp because we couldn't get her to come out of the cycle, which is kind of a bummer deal. But Robin said I paid $8 for New Zealand from the Amish. Naughty rabbits for dog food. Yeah, you get into some of that. The Amish and some of the other, like the vice president of the Harley Club lives in Pennsylvania and he deals with the Amish a lot. And he's always just like, they just practically, because they grow their own feed for so many things, they don't have as much money into them. So they tend to sell stuff for like crazy cheap. So, Anita, I can't buy rabbits from the feed store in California anymore. Man, you can't buy, I could write a whole book on the things you can't do in California anymore. But yeah, that's part of that whole pet shop law.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do any of that kind of stuff anymore, which is it's good and it's bad. The stuff that you see at the feed store is unfortunately normally it's backyard breeder type stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not high quality to begin with. And one, like 80% of those rabbits don't make it to a year old, but of the remaining like 20%, there's something like 80% of those go on to breed more. And so you just end up in the whole cycle. Can you get the dog some water?
She's about to
She's
fling her bowl.
she's the collie's over there pushing her bowl around, looking at us like, "Can I get some service over here?" And every time I take a drink, I think that dog's gonna come over here and knock me down. So, uh, and no, yeah, I palpate her. Yeah, how experienced of a palpator are you? Because I will tell you this, I have tried for years to learn, and I'm not good at it. So every time I'm pretty confident that a doe is bred, she's not. And you know, the really most rabbits, the only time that you can palpate them absolutely 100% is in like day 15 to 17 or 14 to 16, something like that. Because of the way that the babies move up in there, a lot of times you can't find them before or after that. So in North Carolina, rabbits go 15 to 30, sometimes less. That's why I'm trying to focus on quality and what I'm going to start showing this year. That's the best way. And that's where we're at too. When we first started doing rabbits, I'd see them on Craigslist all the time for like 10 and $20. And I would roll up onto Craigslist and put them 35, 40, $50. And people thought I was nuts. A lot of times people would contact me and say, that's for a pair, right? No, no, it wasn't. And we just stuck to it and held to the course. And now I get people that drive from all over. We've got people on the waiting list this year from Utah, Montana, Washington. I have sent rabbits all the way to Alaska. If I was big on sending them overseas, I have people pretty much every day contact us wanting stuff. So yeah, just hold to the course and get yourself a reputation for quality animals. Apparently both the dogs were dehydrating to death in their own minds. So
Yeah.
um my mom has gotten a lot of weird animals from the Walmart parking lot. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Gotten a lot of weird people at the Walmart parking lot.
We were in Walmart really briefly today, and I just thought, no matter what state you're in, wall creatures are wall creatures. There's, and I mean, we shop at Walmart, and I don't know what that says about us, but there's not. Yeah, you're cheap.
I'm cheap.
There's always at least somebody every trip that you're just like, wow, okay. I've seen some weird stuff happen at Walmart.
Yeah.
Matthew, thanks for the info. Have to head off. See y'all later. Thank you for coming, Matthew.
Yep.
Anita, so can I. Okay. Okay. So that's pretty much the basics of getting your homestead business growing. So from there, we'll probably talk about it again on another one. So once you've really kind of established, then it's about doing stuff like stacking complementary enterprises, which is fun stuff. I really suggest to anybody who's looking to get into farm business type stuff, as much as I don't agree with everything he does, you have to give it to him. Joel Salatin probably has the best books when it comes to starting a farm business. And there's two. The first one is You Can Farm, which is old, it's outdated. And then Your Farm Business, I think, is the second one. So it's just kind of one of those things that it takes time, and but those are really good books that at least I took a lot away from them. I don't necessarily agree with the way he does things in Pastured Poultry Profits. I couldn't get behind a lot of it. And
What are you doing?
Salad Bar Beef was the other one that I wasn't real big into, but
Anybody need a purple marker?
Why did you bring this to me?
she needs our help apparently. Stop. Is it worth getting an Arva membership? I need a tattoo pin or clamp for the next litter. I think so. I think you get a lot out of the Arva memberships. If for nothing else, you know a lot of what's going on in the industry, because you do get the Domestic Rabbits magazine. I'm getting tired. I can't think. You get the magazine every other month. And so it's kind of nice. But Silver Fox and some of the other breeds are pretty good about submitting that was my dog. Days. Gotta love the collie. It comes up and belches right in the middle of it. But yeah, they send you like a Raising Rabbits book, and so I think it's worth it, and you get that with your membership. So yeah, I like I said, I don't do it. I'm typically so busy, and saving myself a week or two here and there really doesn't make any difference, because I kind of have my girls set up into birthing rotations. They're not going to go into the rotation until like weeks after they would be due anyway, so it doesn't make much difference.
Uh-oh. There we go.
So
yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah, he's a little tough subject once in a while.
Salatin, I will say that a lot of that stuff that came out this summer, because I follow his blog. I don't read every single one. Some of it was very taken out of context. Some of it was just him running off the mouth and not understanding, I think, how his words came out. At the end of the day, whether you can respect that part of him or not, you have to appreciate the fact that man is. There's a lot of things, like he's very hypocritical in a lot of things, and where he was 20 years ago to where he is now, his message has changed. In his earlier books, he actually talks about, in early interviews as well, how he really didn't believe in the homestead movement. He thought it was a flash in the pan kind of thing, and now he's all raw homesteading. I've always known this was the future, and I'm not. I don't know. I'm not. You can have an opinion that evolves, and I think that's fine. But some of it's pretty hypocritical. So, but that's fine. If you feel that it's an issue, you're perfectly welcome to your own opinion. It's fine. Everybody has to have their own.
I haven't read any of his books, but I've listened to some podcasts and I've done it.
Yeah.
So originally, 20 years ago, a lot of his stuff was very much based on, I guess, the private citizens weren't paying attention a lot to it, other than his local market. But as the internet has grown over the last 25 years of it being out there, his message has changed because his audience has changed.
And he's gotten a little bit arrogant with success, as a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So, Nikki, have you made a tattoo video? I have not, but I have recently had a whole bunch of people ask, so we'll probably do that. Remember, first and foremost, that I usually try and keep the channel to homesteading type stuff. But as we've evolved this into a business as well, uh, pedigreed rabbits, it's a big thing that I preach. So
Yeah.
I use a pin. I don't like a clamp. The clamp is easier. A friend of mine, that's all she would ever do. If you don't have great handwriting, the clamp is the way to go. But I will admit to having a little PTSD from the clamp. When I was learning, the gal who mentored me, my good friend Deanna, was showing me how to do it and had a brand new set of pins, brand new numbers on a clamp, and went through a rabbit's ear, and the rabbit screamed, and it upset me to no ends. And this was like 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, and I still can't do it. And that's actually normal with the clamp. And they say that you get the best tattoo if that happens. It's not for me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, we've got a system where either one or both of us will tattoo, and I'll typically hold. She'll do the ear and all that stuff. And I guess when we do a video, we will take the time to show kind of how one person can do it by themselves, or a secondary person can handle and assist to make it easier, so the rabbit doesn't flinch. They don't, flick their ears or anything else, trying to
yeah.
make it easy.
Yeah, and tattooing, we'll do a video on it, because tattooing is very much an art form as far as you have to kind of know when to do it. Too late, and the tattoo won't stay, especially in bucks. Um, Too early, and you can actually cause some kind of ear damage because of where the nerves run through the ear. So it's kind of a you've got to know when to do it, and you've got to know how to do it, and
Yeah.
yeah, we'll do a video on it. I'll
Well,
add it to my list when we get off of
yeah,
here.
we'll
And
do that because Nick had also asked, one of our other members had asked about a complete series on getting started into breeding rabbits, and kind of, it was more like, if you started over now with your knowledge, how would you go about doing it, based on, how many rabbits you want to do, or if you're going to breed or do for meat or whatever else. So it's kind of it's not an easy answer to say quickly, but we could build it into a series that would work.
yeah, Robin, can you do the same on goats tattoo?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have never tattooed a goat because everything that we've always raised has been crossbreds and high percentage. Uh, we are doing kinders now, and so we do have to tattoo, and I will probably go ahead and do a video on it at some point. It's the same thing. You can use the same pen. I think in the kinder goats we're required to use green ink,
Yeah.
which is different because in rabbits you usually use black. But yeah, you're required to use like green ink. And the other thing that's kind of weird is, so when you do rabbits, you do the left ear unless they're being registered, and then the registrar will do the right ear. With kinders, you actually put a letter in one side and then the identifier in the other. So I'm sure it's going to be kind of exciting to learn how to do that.
Yeah. So Kitty's asking about tattoos not staying in adult ears.
Yep. So what happens a lot of times, it's a couple of things. A lot of times with the rabbits, when you're tattooing adults, um, the ear is already tough, so it's really hard to get enough penetration with the needle to get through the outer layers of skin to get the ink actually in. Uh, Especially if you're trying to do anything like this is getting to be a big thing where people put bunny balm or any of this numbing stuff in the ear. I don't do any of it. It usually hinders more than anything. But yeah, bucks especially, the ear tends to be so tough that it's really hard to get the needle to penetrate deep enough to get the ink in deep enough. Usually I find that, especially with bucks, anything over about 5 months, the tattoo won't stay. You might get enough of it to hold in a little bit, but really, in most of your breeds, you want to shoot for somewhere between 8 and 12 weeks. That's when the ear is supple enough, and you won't go all the way through it with a pen, but you will go deep enough to get that ink to penetrate and stay. And that's kind of the big thing is, um, almost every rabbit I've ever done past 5 or 6 months, I have to re-tattoo if I'm going to do something with them later because it just doesn't stay. Let's see. Mine are getting tattooed while at breeders. Yep. It's not hard. And the big thing with goats is just going to be about holding on to them in such a way that, because goats are squirmy, so it's going to be about holding on to them, especially since so many goats are dehorned or disbutted, or however they're being done. So there's not a whole lot to hold on to, because you can't hold on to their ear. I mean, that's not, you do to tattoo, but you're not going to keep the head straight enough. So yeah, we'll end up making one later on. We're pretty much masters of holding anything down. I've done enough wrangling in my day, I guess. All right, are we all caught up?
We're caught up.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add? Because we're over the hour mark.
I don't. Really.
Okay. If anybody else has anything, go ahead and pop it on there. Otherwise, we're gonna get pretty close to calling this good. I totally do agree with you, Marzi. There's always library books if you don't want to support somebody like that, but still want the information. Because at the end of the day, like I said, he's, love him or hate him, Salatin he's a self-made man as far as marketing, and he does know how to market a farm. He just kind of does.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the way things are. I don't know. You can disagree with him all you want, but I do think that if you sometimes you gotta put yourself out there and learn from the best, even if you don't necessarily agree with their message all the time. So, okay. Well, I don't see anything else, so I think we're going to call it, because this is a little bit longer than I had planned for. So we're going to finish it up just by saying, if you didn't see the video about memberships, we are starting to do memberships. It's a channel supporter type thing, $1.99 a month. If you don't want to be a member, that's fine. We'll keep doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
If you do want to be a member, you'll get extra updates. We're working on maybe some members only videos and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll end up doing a members only chat once a month too, live stream, and we'll keep doing these live streams every Monday. And that is it for us this time. Thank you everybody for coming. And Kathy, it looks like Kathy's still, a lot of you are still on. I'm kind of surprised. Okay.
It's because I'm here.
We got Kanan to come for a live stream. Maybe I'll get him to come back.
Maybe.
He always tells me he doesn't want to participate because all you talk about is bunnies. All right, guys, that's it for us. We're out. Happy homesteading. We will see you next week, as long as the internet connection is working. Thanks, everybody.